Pathing this witch was the puzzle that Jackie took on for her challenge. And here's a photo of her stitch out. Just look at that fabulous detail on that beautifully digitized face. Really nice. Now, as you can see, you stitched it out on a Janome 11,000 size 11 needle, 40 weight thread with a medium stabilizer, fine twill fabric and a cotton applique. And over to the design. Well, this is actually the stitch file, the Jeff file, as you see it on Janome version 5, and for the first time ever I have actually managed to open Mbird. I downloaded the demo version so that I could look at your file on this, and that is your file as digitized. Now what I'll do is I'll do some of the review using Digitizer 5, which is the software that I'm familiar with and I can actually work with fairly quickly, but there are a couple of points that I need to show you and would like to use Mbird for, so please bear with me when it comes to using Mbird. But right now we're going back to the beginning and we'll have a look at how you actually manage to unscramble this design. So from the top, first off we work out what style, and you've chosen a fairly traditional style with frills and a little bit of satin stitch. One of the things you did use was an applique to deal with this large piece here for the background, which is for the moon, and that's an extremely clever way of being able to deal with that kind of a problem. The next step is scale. Your design when you finished it was 6 inches deep by 8 inches wide, and I think that's a great scale for being able to include some of the detail here. You did a great job of that, by the way. And it's a bit of a double-edged sword because of course as soon as you start including the detail, working with digitizing and embroidery stitches, it's not like working with pen and ink and colouring pencils, is it? It's how you get that representation of the detail, and I have to say you did it with a very light touch. And so after style and scale comes colour. We already know that you used more than one colour, so the next step obviously is to analyse the graphic to unscramble which colour comes first, which ones come second, and to come up with a plan that plots the order along with travel lines wherever we can manage to put them in to try and avoid putting in some colour changes. And hopefully we can also make sure that the way in which we work through the design, we cut the little hops from one place to another where we cannot avoid having trims to the smallest little hops that we can get away with. And Jackie, you actually worked out the order very well indeed. So the first step was to lay down the applique, the positioning or placement, followed by the blue, which represents the tack down, and finally the pink, which is your satin cover. Now there was just one minor little point here, and I'll cover it now quickly because it'll only take a moment or two to fix. As you can see here, your satin stitch doesn't cover the underlying zigzag stitch underneath on that section. On these it does. And I think it's useful to go over and look at this in Mbird. You can see quite clearly here, and when I actually select the pink satin stitch line, you can see that it's actually narrower than the zigzag line that you used for your tack down. However, when we look at the blue, like that section there, you can see that it is most definitely much wider than this zigzag here. Now, it's going to be fairly straightforward to perhaps reduce this blue stitching to be the same size as this. However, what I want you to have a look at is your stitch out as we have here, because even though you can't see that clearly, I wonder if in fact that border that you've put around here at something like 2 to 2.5 millimeters in depth, it's too narrow, a smidgen too narrow. You've got a little bit here where it looks like it's not caught perhaps as well as it should. And I'm going to show you now that on a stitch out that I made of your design. When I actually looked at this, I stitched it out on felt without an applique. My view was, and it's a personal one, that that was very, very narrow. Usually for applique I find that a 3mm satin stitch border is about as narrow as it gets, really. Anyway, that's a matter for you. It's a matter of personal choice about the depth of that border, but it is just a minor little correction. So let's get back to unscrambling the rest of the design now. And so here we have the first 3 colours that you used. First goes down the broomstick, followed by the brushwood attached to it, and then the clouds. And let's just see how those stitch out. Outline, covered by your satin stitch. Travel down. This was cleverly done with the weave stitch and the carved lines to make those brushwood twigs. Inspired. But of course you started here, it's filled back, and then it'll finish here, and from there it'll then jump up to here, and your start and finish point for this object is up here in the same place. And then when that finishes there, it jumps across to here, and you can't avoid the jump because there's no way of being able to travel from this cloud over to this one here. So all we need to think about then perhaps is, when we finish here, where's the next object that we're going to do start? Now, one of the things that you might want to consider, and again it's a minor point, start here, travel down to here, and instead of finishing that there, how about finishing it at the end here? Consider the flow of the fill of your objects. You could then pick up your new colour, walk the way down to the end and bring it back. Maybe then do your jump up to here, start this one over here and put the fill flow, finish here, hop across to this one, join on here, walk up to the end, and then perhaps come back down this way here, ready to go into the next object, which is the pink, and you start that off near the face. And as we can see here, that's your start point, and you went up, filled this, and of course you've actually left holes here ready for the eyes and the mouth so that you don't get your layers too thick. Nice thinking about the detail. And then your hand finishes here. Now at this point you decided to fill in some of the detail, and I suppose that's about digitizing for registration as much as anything. So what we'll do is we'll jump ahead and we'll look at how those details got filled in. Now, just so that we can see things, I'm going to change this colour here, just for the purposes of this exercise, to this bright orange here, just so that we can see it. So, filled in the pink, and a beautiful travel line between all the different objects, which will be covered up later on. And then we finish with the hand here. We then hop across, fill the lips in, we hop back and do the bracelet, and then we hop back up here and we do the 2 sets of blue eyeshadow. It is possible that we can cut out a couple of these little hops by perhaps moving the lipstick down here, and that puts the hand finishing here, do the bracelet, and then you can pop up, do the lipstick, do the eyeshadow, or vice versa perhaps, like that, and then of course you're ready then to come down and start the dress. But we've only got one lot of hopping and a small hop here as opposed to going backwards and forwards. Next comes the dress, and of course this is path starting here, and you have some lovely travel lines going all the way around, joining all your objects. Again, perhaps a little bit of consideration given to where your start and end points are within your individual objects. It's a minor adjustment. And of course this one now finishes here. And just for a little bit of a recap, this is as much as we've stitched so far, and already we can see all these little dotted lines are where we've hopped about from one place to another. And that's what it looks like in true view up to now. Now that we've got the dress in, I think your next step was to put in the hat and the cloak or the cape and her skirt. And there they are. Let's watch those go in. So start at the hat, travel down to the brim, and then you work your way down to the skirt and then back up the bodice. Nice little travel line here. So of course you fill in your skirt, and then you go back up the bodice again, and you finished here up on the shoulder. And from the shoulder it's a little bit of a step down here to this aubergine coloured little bit of lining that you put in, which as if by magic appears here, and then from there you go down and put in her purple boots. And after the purple boots comes the detail of the lacing or decoration that's on it, immediately followed then by the black on the stays, where you start here, come across here to the bottom, finish here, jump up to the hat band and out to the kitty cat. And let's watch that one. Again, consider whether in fact you could do your start point here and your finish point up here. All these parts about the flow through individual objects, they are only minor points. He's so cute, that cat. And the last three colours that are going to go in are the white of the lacing, the white of the eyes and the cat's eye, followed by the black eyeliner for the pupils, and then the gold for the hair, which has all been done with a weave stitch and these carved lines again. It's quite an effective way of doing it. So let's actually watch that. The white lines going in for the lacing, the eyes and the hair, and I'll just hurry it up now. And lo and behold, she's almost finished. And there she is in all her glory. So just a little recap. See all the lines coming here. It's much nicer to look at it that way, isn't it? And of course over to the design itself. Now in part 2 of the video, what I want to do is take a look at a couple of things. I want to look at this issue here of coverage, and I also want to look at what's causing this gapping here and here. It's the reason why I actually went and stitched this design out myself, because I wanted to see, was it the digitizing or was it something to do with the fabric or the needle. And you see here, this gapping here and the gapping here, a little bit on the ear, there's a little bit here between the boot and the leg. So that's what we're going to look at in part 2 of the video.